Okay, we're getting into spooky season now, so I figured I'd start it off with what I think is the best sci-fi horror movie of all time, Alien. I mean, when it comes to sci-fi horror, it's kind of a toss-up between this and The Thing. They're both great, but I personally would probably give the edge to Alien. It's an amazing movie, with an equally amazing sequel. In fact, I'm not really sure which one I like better. But there's no question that the first one is the better horror movie. Alien is sci-fi horror, and Aliens is more like sci-fi action. Although any movie with the xenomorph alien is going to have at least some horror in it, because it's just a terrifying creature design. I mean, it might be the scariest creature ever created. I mean, it's fucking nuts. It was designed by H.R. Giger, of course, and it's fucking terrifying. I'm actually a little worried about the kind of human brain that is capable of coming up with something like this. I'm joking around here, but it's truly the stuff of nightmares. And if you saw this at a young age, I'm willing to bet it gave you a few nightmares. And I think we should just get into it. Alien, from 1979, directed by Ridley Scott, written by Dan O'Bannon, starring Sigourney Weaver as Warrant Officer Ripley, Tom Skerritt as Captain Dallas, Yaphet Kotto as Chief Engineer Parker, Ian Holm as Science Officer Ash, John Hurt as XO Kane, Veronica Cartwright as Navigator Lambert, and Harry Dean Stanton as Engineering Technician Brett. I figured I'd go a little bit more detailed with the introductions because every actor is worth mentioning, and there's not that many of them. And I should also mention that I'm mostly going to be talking about the theatrical release. I may make some references to the minor differences from the director's cut, but the theatrical version is the one that I watched for this, and I think it's the version that I prefer. Anyway, also this is a scary horror movie. There will be some fictionalized images of violence and gore from the movie in this video. I mean, you really shouldn't be watching this if you're not familiar with the movie, but fair warning nonetheless. Anyway, let's just get to it. The movie opens up with the commercial towing vehicle Nostromo, and it's carrying a refinery and 20 million tons of mineral ore, and it's returning to Earth after a long mission. And at first glance, it looks like a massive, bizarrely designed factory in space. But most of it is just a payload. The ship itself is actually relatively small. It's just towing this massive thing behind it. And the interior of the ship is already creepy. It looks dirty, grimy, and wet. It looks hot. And it's a sleeper ship. The crew of 7 are waking up from cryostasis. The computer powers on, and I love the archaic analog look of all the tech. Kind of reminds me of the Fallout video games, or I should say the Fallout video games remind me of Alien. I think the terminals on the Pip-Boy in those games are clearly an homage to this movie. And everyone's waking up, and they're all kind of wearing these weird diaper-looking things. I think I remember hearing that they were originally supposed to be naked for this, which, I mean, that would have been an interesting way to introduce a group of characters. And they all get dressed and sit down for a big meal, and all the personalities are introduced. Engineers Parker and Brett want to talk about the bonus situation. Captain Dallas says they get what they're contracted for like everyone else, but everyone else gets more. And it's interesting that Parker and Brett find it easier to haggle with their coworkers rather than the company that actually signs the checks. And they hear an alert from the computer room, and the computer is called Mother. And they try to find their bearings. They don't really know where they are. Earth is nowhere close. It's a little odd that they didn't know that they weren't close to Earth when they woke up, just by how much time has passed since they've been asleep. They should know that they're not close to Earth, but I guess they haven't checked the time. And it turns out that they're 12 parsecs away from Earth, which is a lot. And they're only halfway home. They would need the Millennium Falcon to get home in less than 12 parsecs. And it turns out that Mother woke them up. It picked up a transmission from a beacon, which seems like an SOS. And according to the company that employs them, any system that indicates the existence of intelligent life must be investigated. And if they don't, they will forfeit their entire salary. So despite Parker's understandable protests, they're going to investigate. The Nostromo leaves its payload behind and lands on LV-426, which is a moon orbiting a massive gas giant. There's all sorts of Christmas lights on the underside of the ship, which is nice. And the ship is damaged on the way down. And they're about 1.25 miles from the source of the transmission. So they're going out to investigate while Parker and Brett repair the ship. Personally, I would wait until the ship is ready to take off before going out to check out on this beacon, just in case they got to get out of there real fast. But, there's no shortage of poor choices in this movie. So Dallas and Kane and Lambert all put on spacesuits, and they head towards the beacon. They all have lights inside their helmets, which is a bizarre, common thing in sci-fi. It doesn't make any sense. But they want the actors' faces to be at least somewhat well lit, even though it would obviously hinder their ability to see. I mean, a light is shining right in their face. The most egregious example of this that I can think of is the sci-fi movie called Outland, starring Sean Connery, which is kind of an Alien knockoff, at least in terms of its visuals. But I mean, look at this. What is the point of lining the inside of your helmet with Christmas lights? Makes no sense. Anyway, they find what appears to be a crashed ship, and it's massive. They go inside and find a huge skeleton sitting in a chair. It's hard to tell where the chair ends and the skeleton begins. Dallas says it looks like it's growing out of the chair. And they notice that the bones on the chest are bent outward, like he exploded from the inside. So this is kind of nuts. They have just discovered a giant dead alien body on board this ship. And that's not even the biggest discovery they're about to make. And they continue on, and they come across a massive area of the ship. They lower Kane down on a rope, and he discovers a bunch of huge eggs on the ground. I mean, maybe now is a good time to leave. He also notices that the top of the eggs all have some kind of weird orifice on them. Okay, can we leave now? I guess not. Kane gets even closer, the egg opens up, and he gets face-hugged. A creature leaps out and attaches itself to his helmet. I mean, this guy has zero survival instincts. And Dallas and Lambert collect Kane and bring him back to the ship, somehow. I have no idea how they carried him out of there on their own, but they did. And they try to get on board, but Ripley won't open the hatch until they know exactly what's stuck on Kane's face, and if it's a contaminant of some kind. Dallas orders Ripley to open the door, but she once again refuses. But Ash disregards Ripley's orders and opens it manually. He lets them all in. And they take Kane to the infirmary where Ash is going to examine him, and for some reason Dallas is also in the room. Everyone is watching from outside. And in a deleted scene, which I believe is in the director's cut, correct me if I'm wrong, Lambert slaps Ripley. And I think it's safe to say that Ripley is not well liked by the rest of the crew. I think it's because she's the smartest of the bunch, and I guess they don't like that. And Ash cuts the helmet off and reveals the creature, and it's kind of insane. It's smashed through his helmet. And Ash seems to be wearing no shirt under his little doctor scrubs, which is kind of weird. And whenever they try removing the creature, it just tightens its grip on Kane. And it also is breathing in and out, indicating that Kane is actually alive and breathing through the creature. And they can't rip it off because it will take Kane's face with it. It's fucking terrifying, this thing. And Parker asks how come they don't freeze him. He suggests this several times, and he's always ignored. I said Ripley is not well liked, but Parker and Brett are not well liked either. Or at the very least, they're not well respected. And they should be, because they keep the fucking ship running. And if Ripley is the smartest person in the movie, I think Parker has to be the second smartest. He makes a lot of sense. It's just that no one ever seems to listen to him. I mean, he is right. They probably should just stick him in stasis and wait till they get home. Although, I don't know, given the nature of the alien, that might not be a great idea either. But considering what they know and don't know, it at least seems like a practical suggestion from Parker. But no one seems to agree. And Ash's scans reveal that the creature has a giant tube running into Kane's mouth. So, they don't know it yet, but what this thing is doing is fucking his face. That's what's happening right now. It's insane. I think if any other group of people had made this movie, it would be a laughable horror comedy. And the hundreds of low-budget alien knockoffs since this movie kind of proves that point, I think. But because it's Ridley Scott, Dan O'Bannon, and H.R. Giger, and these actors, it feels totally real and believable, and not funny at all. It's fucking horrifying. Ash reiterates that removing it might kill Kane, but Dallas is willing to take the chance. They cut into one of its legs, and green acid drips out onto the floor. Dallas says it'll lead through the hull. He races down a few decks, and I never understood what exactly he intends to do to stop it. I mean, what is he going to do? Cup his hands and catch it? He would need some kind of plastic or a glass container, which he doesn't appear to have. Luckily, it seems to have simply run out of steam and stops. So this thing has acid blood. It's nuts. I don't know any other way to describe it. And Ash continues studying Kane and the creature. Ripley walks in, and she sees an image on his computer screen. She asks what it is, but Ash says he doesn't know. But it's pretty clear that he does know, and Ash is constantly dismissive of Ripley. He does not really respect her authority in any way, and he seems to respect Dallas a lot more. Ash also takes a drink of a white substance. Is it milk or something else? Who knows? And sometime later, they take a look at Kane, and the creature is gone. They find it, and it's dead. They examine it, and it's fucking disgusting. I mean, just looking at this still kind of amazes me that this is not a real creature. The practical effects in this movie are insane. And Ash wants to study it further. Ripley wants to get rid of it. And Dallas just kind of passes the buck and allows Ash to do whatever he wants. He also admits to Ripley that he doesn't really know Ash. This is his first expedition with him as his science officer. So it seems like Dallas is just kind of towing the company line. He doesn't really want to go against the grain. But what he does want is to get the hell out of here. He wants to leave even though repairs are not complete. I mean, they really should think about waiting to see what happens with Kane before they put themselves in the vacuum of space. Then again, who knows? Those eggs start hatching, the ship could be crawling with those fucking facehuggers. So maybe it's not a bad idea. In any case, they take off, and it's a success. And Lambert breaks the bad news that they're 10 months away from home, which is actually not that much. They may have to be in stasis for the journey, but that's pretty fast, considering they're 12 parsecs away. I'm not exactly Neil deGrasse Tyson or anything, but I'm pretty sure that 12 parsecs translates to about 39 light years, which is crazy. They obviously can travel faster than light. Anyway, Kane wakes up, and they're just in the room talking with him, which is weird. I mean, there's no regard for any kind of contamination. Just because he woke up and he seems to feel fine doesn't mean he isn't, like, infected with something. It would make no sense if there's nothing wrong with him. That facehugger had its dick down his throat for hours. That has to change a person. And he wants some food before he goes into cryosleep. So they all share a meal in the mess hall. And the conversation seems real. There are all sorts of different conversations happening. And if you focus on one, you can actually make out what they're saying. Like it's a real conversation. It's really well done. And this, of course, is the scene. the defining scene of the movie. Seems like Kane is starting to choke. Everyone tries to help him, but Ash, of all people, just sits there and watches. Kane thrashes around some more, and then this happens. Holy shit. Right? Yeah, that's weird, and it's gross, and it's horrifying. But it's also fucking amazing. I mean, it looks real. It has to be one of the best special effects I've ever seen in a movie. If that could really happen to a person, that is exactly what it would look like. It's just outstanding. And the way it happens is just perfect. There's a crunch at first, and some blood appears on his shirt, and then there's a pause. Everything just stops for an instant. And then he continues thrashing, and the titular alien creature bursts through his chest and kills him. I mean, holy shit, what an introduction. It's just amazing. And I guess they should have given him some Pepto-Bismol. Sorry. You know I can't resist a Spaceballs reference. And there's blood everywhere. Parker seems to want to try to kill it with what looks like a plastic butter knife. I mean, okay, it's worth a fucking shot. I say go for it. But Ash says, don't touch it. And he says it in a way that makes it seem like he's protecting the crew. But in actuality, he's protecting the alien. And they all decide to go looking for it. Brett rigs up this sort of cattle prod thing that should disable it without causing it to bleed. And he thinks he found it at one point, but it turns out to be Jones, the ship's cat. Yeah, there's a cat on the ship. And when Brett tries to collect Jones, he discovers that the alien has shed its skin. He finds himself in a large room, which doesn't make any sense. There's all sorts of chains hanging from the ceiling, and it's raining. And it seems like there's natural light coming from the ceiling. It's a really bizarre setting. I mean, it looks like he's not even on the ship anymore. It's really weird, but it's creepy, so we'll go with it. And just when he thinks he's tracked down Jones, the alien shows up. And it's grown a lot in a very short period of time. It takes Brett up into the vents, and Jones the cat watches with a judgmental look on his face as if to say, you stupid fuck. So, Brett is presumed dead, and apparently Ripley and Parker saw this happen because Parker says it was huge, and it took him up into the air vent. So, he wasn't in the scene, but he knows exactly what happened to him. And it's obviously moving around in the air ducts, and Ash calls it Kane's son, which is fucking disturbing, although it's not really inaccurate. And they come up with a harebrained plan to send someone into the ventilation shaft with a flamethrower to try to drive the alien into an isolated area where they can confine it and blast it into space. And Ripley volunteers, but Dallas says he'll go. Dallas is kind of an interesting character. If you didn't know anything about the movie, you would probably think he's going to be the hero. You know, he's the captain. But he also seems kind of apathetic at times and maybe even a little cowardly. But then he contradicts those things by choosing to go into the vents. Maybe as the captain, he's just tired of watching his crew die. So he goes in with a flamethrower, and Lambert is tracking movement on some sort of sensor device. She picks up the alien, but then she says she lost it. Then it comes back. And she says it's moving towards him. She tells him to get out of there, but she never tells him what direction it's coming from. And he never asks. So naturally, he takes a wrong turn and runs right into the alien. And I don't know. I think it looks kind of sweet here. Like it just wants a big hug. And Parker finds the flamethrower, but no sign of Dallas, of course. And Lambert says they should abandon the ship. But the shuttle won't carry 4 passengers, which doesn't make any sense to me. There was a crew of 7 on this thing, and the only shuttle holds less than 4? This feels like a Titanic situation to me. And Lambert says they should draw straws. And based on her panicked state, I don't think she liked the idea very much if she ended up with the short straw. And Ripley, who is officially now in charge, goes to the computer room. There's an awful lot of blinking lights in this computer room, and I'm sure every one of them serves a purpose. And she finds something that says Special Order 937 on the mother terminal. It says, for science officers' eyes only, which doesn't have the same ring to it as the James Bond movie, For Your Eyes Only. She overrides it and discovers that it's a directive to investigate a life form and gather a specimen. And all other considerations are secondary, and the crew is expendable. Somehow, Ash shows up. He got into this room undetected, and he just says that there's an explanation for this, and Ripley doesn't really want to hear it. She shoves Ash around a bit and leaves the room. She tries to exit the outer compartment, but Ash closes the doors. And for some reason, Ripley's nose is randomly bleeding. And as far as I can tell, this is from an earlier scene that was scrapped, where she and Parker encounter the alien after Dallas was killed. And it's kind of odd that they just left it in. But I suppose people do get nosebleeds, so who the fuck cares? And Ash attacks Ripley. And he's got some kind of white liquid dripping from his face. I mean, we've all been there, right? And Ash is incredibly strong and scary. I haven't seen him behave like this since he saw Frodo with the One Ring. And he has Ripley pinned down on some kind of bunk or a couch, and he rolls up a porn magazine, and he starts shoving it in her mouth. And I don't know what the fuck this is about. Some kind of impotent android rage? And yeah, obviously Ash is an android. That's the big reveal here. And it's confirmed when Parker and Lambert show up to try to help Ripley, and Ash just kind of grabs Parker's tit, and then Parker just knocks Ash's head off, and milk just starts shooting everywhere. I mean, Jesus Christ, how much milk was he fucking drinking earlier? Why are androids in the alien universe so gooey? And if they have to be like this, why not make the liquid red? At least try to make it a little less obvious. In any case, they plug his head into a USB port and reactivate him. Basically just to ask him what the fuck his problem is. And he looks like a complete disaster. I mean, this looks like he had a rough day at the glory hole. And he explains his directive to bring back the life form, and he describes it as perfect. He admires its purity, and he calls it a survivor, unclouded by conscience or delusions of morality. I mean, is he talking about the alien or himself? And then he says this.
I can't lie to you about your chances, but you have my sympathies.
And they unplug him, and his face turns into this. I don't know what happened here, but it's pretty fucked up. Probably one of the few effects in the movie that doesn't really hold up at all. Although, I kind of don't mind it. To me, it kind of makes sense that an android's face might contort if it was malfunctioning and then suddenly was deactivated. I don't know. It doesn't bother me as much as it bothered Ridley Scott, who really didn't like how this scene turned out. So, Ash is officially destroyed, and I'm a little surprised Ripley didn't ask him, why the fuck did you shove a porn magazine down my throat? Who the fuck programmed him to do something like that? Whoever programmed this android is a sick maniac. Anyway, they're down to 3, which means they can finally use the shuttle. Ripley gets it ready, while Parker and Lambert gather supplies. And why the shuttle isn't already stocked with supplies, I'll never know. And Ripley finds Jones already in the shuttle. I mean, is this a smart cat or what? But I guess he gets startled and he bolts. Maybe he's not so smart. Ripley goes after him and puts him in a crate. And then Lambert and Parker get ambushed by the alien. It's moving towards Lambert, and Parker attacks it and tries his best to fight with it. He tells Lambert to run, but she's frozen in fear. Parker begs her to get out of the room, as if to say, I'm literally dying here. The least you could do is make it kind of worth it. But she can't. And I guess I can't really blame her, because I'd be shitting my pants too. So it kills Parker, and it moves towards Lambert again. And it seems to put its tail between her legs, and it's weirdly suggestive. And again, that's par for the course for this movie. Everything is more than a little suggestive. And she screams. Ripley races to them, but she's too late. She finds them both dead. So she heads back to the controls and begins the 10-minute self-destruct countdown. She grabs Jones, but the alien is blocking her path to the shuttle. And she leaves Jones behind, which is kind of fucked up. But thankfully, the alien seems to have no interest in felines. Ripley tries to turn off the self-destruct, but it's past the point of no return. So she has no choice but to head back to the shuttle. And I think this is about where the most famous deleted scene from the movie takes place. It's in the director's cut. I'm pretty sure Ripley takes an alternate route and stumbles across Dallas and Brett. And they're cocooned and likely awaiting the same fate as Kane. And Ripley puts them out of their misery. It's a pretty cool scene, but I'm glad it's not in the theatrical version. It doesn't make much sense in the context of the movie. Ripley has to escape. The clock is ticking. She does not have time to stop for anything. And it doesn't make sense that she wastes even more time lighting them on fire when they're going to be blown up in a couple minutes anyway. Which, honestly, that would be a quicker and less painful death than being lit on fire. So I actually like the theatrical version more because of that reason. And she makes it back to the shuttle, and she picked up Jones along the way. I bet he was pissed off that she just left him behind in a crate. That was pretty fucked up. He's just a little kitty cat, and you left him with a monster on the loose. It's messed up. Anyway, she makes it to the shuttle just in time and launches it with seconds to spare. The Nostromo blows up. It's a success. And Ripley prepares to go into stasis. She puts Jones in a pod, and then she starts taking off her clothes. And when you first watch this movie, you're probably thinking, why is it continuing from this point? The alien is dead, right? But you're not complaining, because you're still getting some interesting visuals. But at the same time, you know some shit's going to happen. Otherwise, the movie would have ended. We're all scared and horny right now. And Ripley has the most ridiculous, low-cut underwear I've ever seen. Is this what people wear in the future? I mean, it only comes up to her fucking mons. And it has a built-in plumber's crack. I guess they really are truckers in space. And out of nowhere, when you least expect it, the fucking alien reveals itself. It's just been hiding in the corner this entire time. And it seems kind of drunk, like it's hurt or low on energy or something. I'm not really sure why. Maybe the blaring sound of the self-destruct alarm gave it a migraine. I mean, I felt like the blinking lights almost gave me a fucking seizure. The computer really made sure that everyone knew the ship was going to blow up. So Ripley runs into the storage locker. She puts on a spacesuit. Thankfully, it doesn't seem to have the big lights on the inside of the helmet. She heads out, and she blasts the alien with some kind of steam to get it out of its crevice. And then she opens the hatch to the shuttle and shoots it with a fucking Batman grapple gun. And then she hits the ship's afterburners to blow it away once and for all. Thank Crom. And Ripley records a final log entry about everything that's happened, and she gets into the stasis pod with Jones the cat, and that's how the movie ends. Amazing. I can't say enough about how much I love this movie. It's a terrifying horror movie, but it's also a great science fiction movie. And I think the best sci-fi usually asks more questions than it answers. And this movie leaves you with a lot of questions. It doesn't tell you anything about where the xenomorphs came from. It doesn't tell you anything about the giant space jockey skeleton they find. It's all left up to your imagination. And I think the franchise has really suffered since it started trying to provide answers to everything. And some of the complaints about the movie are that it's very slow in the beginning. But I love that. It's a slow burn. But I think when a slow burn works, it really works. And this might be the best example of a slow burn. And once you get to the last 25 minutes of the movie, it's insane. It's nonstop. It really makes it worth the wait. And of course, the xenomorph is fucking terrifying. It's not actually called the xenomorph in this movie, but that's what it's called in the franchise, obviously. And the movie does a great job of making you feel like it could be lurking around any corner. And people also say that a lot of the characters are dumb, and Ripley is the only smart one. But I don't think that's fair. It's probably fair to call Kane a little dumb when he basically sticks his face into a facehugger's egg. And I actually kind of wonder if Kane wasn't also a company loyalist. Obviously, he's not a robot like Ash was, but he seemed to want to push a little further and see more of the alien ship than anyone else. Kind of makes you wonder if maybe he had some special orders of his own. And Dallas obviously makes a few bonehead decisions too. He's not exactly Captain Kirk. But I don't think everyone else is dumb. Parker and Brett are right about a lot of the stuff they say.
Right.
Whenever he says anything, you say right, Brett. You know that?
Right.
Parker especially seems to have a lot of fair suggestions. And he wants to talk about the bonus situation. And who could blame him? And if I could save one extra character, it would probably be Parker. He's great in my opinion. And of course, Ripley is one of the most iconic sci-fi characters of all time. How do you not love her? I mean, basically none of the Alien movies would have happened if everyone just listened to Ripley. She's an intelligent, heroic character, especially in the follow-up, and she saves the cat. And who doesn't love that? And obviously, this movie has spawned a ton of rip-offs. I think maybe only Star Wars and Jaws have more rip-offs than Alien. There were a ton of movies coming out that were heavily inspired by Alien. You know, you got the low-budget Roger Corman movies, which are actually pretty fun. And Italian filmmakers are always quick to capitalize, even going so far as to try to pass off a totally unrelated movie as a sequel, which is just hilarious. And there's even some more modern movies that are just basically knockoffs of Alien. And I don't mean that as a criticism. Most of them are actually pretty fun. But it just shows how influential this movie is. But anyway, I should probably shut my yap at this point. Let me know what you think of Alien, and let me know which Alien movie is your favorite in the franchise. And we're only just getting started with the spooky stuff this month. I've got a lot of stuff planned, so keep an eye out. And until next time, take it easy.
This is Ripley, last survivor of the Nostromo. Signing off.